Sure. All right, so my name is Katie. I'm a speech therapist with UPMC Rehab Institute. And like I said, we're just going to be talking about attention and how it's affected from cancer, how it's difficult to pay attention sometimes, either if you're going through cancer or recovering from cancer. So I think it's important to first go over just what is cancer-related cognitive impairment, okay? Did it switch to the next slide? Okay, perfect. Just making sure. Okay, so cancer-related cognitive impairment, also known as CRCI, is what you might hear called chemo brain or chemo fog or cancer brain, anything like that. It's just a general term for cognitive decline experienced during or after cancer treatments. So it's commonly experienced by like probably about half of people who are recovering from cancer report lasting cognitive issues after the treatment is over. Um, I say about half because some of the reports, some of the studies say like 25 and then others say 70. So it's kind of hard to, people define cognitive issues in different ways. So I think, about half of people seems to be the consensus. And so the question is, why does this happen to some people and others not so much? It can all be boiled down to three causes. So the chemotherapy, all the drugs and the chemicals going through your body is definitely takes a lot out of you and it can cause these cognitive issues. The cancer itself, so depending on what kind of cancer it is, where it is, that can cause cognitive issues. And then also just genetics. So some people are more susceptible than others. It just kind of seems to be a luck of the draw sort of situation. So since we're talking a little bit about attention today, it's definitely common to experience attention problems for people who are having cancer-related cognitive impairments. So this can look like a lot of things, like difficulty concentrating, having trouble with your memory, or just like feeling kind of foggy, like we said before, having trouble finding the words in conversations, and also like multitasking. So usually I hear people say, I used to be so good at multitasking and now I can't pay attention to two things at once. It just doesn't work. So that's definitely a cognitive impairment that is seen a lot just in my experience. And also following along with conversations and also just the mental toll of having cancer and going through the treatments can cause these memory and cognitive impairments and issues. All right. Okay. So the question is, what kind of strategies can we do to help these attention problems? So this is just like an overall review, and then we'll go more into a little bit deeper into them. So the first one is eliminating distractions. Okay. So that can be external distractions or distractions in your head, like internally. Also, using written aids is a good way to help pay attention and remember things that you're told. Taking frequent breaks, that's an important one. You don't want to overload your brain. So it's important to pace yourself, take breaks, plan to take breaks when you can. Mindfulness, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Active listening, we're going to review that more in depth. And then the Pomodoro technique, which is something like an attention technique. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Are you ready to move on? Or do you want me to wait for a second?
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't know about David, but
Okay. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to stop me and ask or any comments or anything. It's
Yep,
free.
I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's David. Okay. All right. So the first one that we said was eliminating distractions. So this can look like finding a quiet location. Seems obvious, but it's a good way to be mindful of finding somewhere quiet, somewhere that you can. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, perfect. Sorry, I saw something in the chat. Finding a quiet location if you're having a conversation or if you're working on something, just being mindful of like turning off devices, turning off the TV, maybe going somewhere away from people, closing yourself in a room if you really need to focus on something. Um, Also turning off your devices, it's pretty common for us to have our phones and then any little notification pops up and that instantly pulls you out of it, pulls you away, it distracts you. So being mindful of turning off devices if there's something that you really need to focus on. There's also visual distractions, so maybe looking out the window, a TV that's just playing but not necessarily you're listening to it. There's lots of visual distractions, even like things on your workspace. So papers or, bills or so anything that you can look at that takes away your attention. And then also in social settings, those tend to be very distracting because there's lots of conversations and people talking in the background. So just if you're having an important conversation with somebody, just being mindful, like, can we go somewhere a little quieter? Can we, have this conversation later? Just when we can eliminate as many distractions that you can. All right. Okay. So written aids, like I said before, sometimes it's important or it's helpful, I mean, to write down key points or words in the conversation or people's names, So let's say you go to a friend's house and there's a new friend there, somebody that they invited over. You're writing down their name, maybe some key things about them, like from Georgia, her name is Sue, and I don't know, she used to be a teacher or something like that. Just key points. And how it says here, memory notebook. I suggest this to people all the time in my therapy. So it's kind of like having a notebook or a notepad that is designated to be your memory book, so then that's the only thing it does. And it's something small you can carry with you or stick in your house somewhere, that you write down anything you want to remember, anything to take the load off of your brain so that you don't have to rely on your brain to remember these things. So yeah, writing things down, don't be afraid to write down people's names or important things about them, anything to cue yourself to remember. All right, so active listening this is probably the best strategy to help you remember what you hear and remember conversations and recall what's being said. So interacting with people or just being social in general, it's a very important part of the human experience, it's conversing and socializing with people and strangers, even friends, family. It's good for reducing depression. Usually if people are having issues with this, they might tend to withdraw and get away from these social situations, but it's important to learn the strategies to help you keep socializing, to keep you from isolating yourself. So difficulty with memory or paying attention can make these social situations really difficult. So an example would be like forgetting people's names. Okay, you're like, oh, I know that person, but I forgot their name, so I'm gonna avoid talking to them so that it doesn't come up that I don't remember their name. Or following along with the conversation, I can't follow along with what people are saying, so I'm just gonna not have the conversation. Or just forgetting what people say to you, it being like, oh, I'm not gonna remember that, so don't even bother. So these are all things that you want to tend to be natural reactions, but you want to try to avoid that just to, so you're not withdrawing and isolating yourself. So active listening is the strategy to make it easier to have these social relationships with family, friends, strangers, like I said. So the steps, there's basically 3 steps. There's listening. Okay, so obviously you have to be able to listen to the person. So this looks like spacing them with your body, making eye contact. These all seem obvious, but it's good to get into the practice of, you'd be surprised if you're having a conversation with somebody, you're probably thinking of 5 different things. Maybe you're doing something else. So just being mindful of and purposeful in listening to somebody, showing them that you're listening, nodding, saying, things like that. And then there's summarizing. So, summarizing out loud what someone says to you. So not all the details, but just the basic idea is good. That does the trick. So, for example, if someone's telling you about their recent vacation, you could reply with, "Oh, okay, so you went to the Outer Banks with your family and you guys rode horses on the beach or something." You don't necessarily need to know like exactly who in their family was there, or I mean, you don't really need to know everything about their family vacation, but if you want to show them that you're listening and you want to remember what they're telling you, "Oh, okay, so you went on vacation last week with your family. You guys went to the Outer Banks." Perfect. That's the main idea. And then also clarifying. So this is something that takes a little bit of practice to get comfortable with using, but it's totally okay to just be like, "Okay, just to be clear," or "Did I hear you right?" Or even if you caught yourself, you weren't listening to what they were saying, you could just say, "I'm so sorry. Where did you say you and your family went?" Just getting comfortable with clarifying it and repeating it back to the person. Just that act of saying it and hearing it back can be very helpful for your memory. Can be helpful to remember and pay attention to what's being said. So, like I said, active listening takes a little bit of practice to be able to use it consistently. But using this strategy can help you encode what's being said and then also store it in your brain so that you can call it forward a little bit later. And you can use a combination of these strategies. So you use active listening when you're listening to the person. And then maybe later after the conversation, you jot it down in your memory notebook. So, okay, today I met somebody, her name was Sue, and she is my, I don't know, my neighbor's sister-in-law or something. She lives in Georgia. Anything like that to help you remember. Like I said, a combination of these strategies is perfect. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Like I
Nope.
said, feel free to stop me and share any questions or experiences or anything that works for you. Okay,
Can I
sure.
just say on the active listening,
Absolutely.
I personally would just add, I know it's very important for me to make on eye contact or to make sure that people make eye contact with me, or
Yeah,
because if I feel like they're whatever, then I'm not going to continue talking to them.
right,
So
right, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's just a good thing to do anyway, show
right.
somebody that you're listening to them so that they know that you care about what they say. All right, so ground or mindfulness, sorry. So mindfulness, I know that this is kind of like a buzzword a little bit, but it's basically just grounding yourself to the moment and improving your attention. Okay, so it's basically well, actually we'll go over the quick relaxation. So that is a form of mindfulness. It's almost like meditation almost. So it's a practice that you could do anywhere really. The point is to get comfortable with it so that you can do it anywhere. And you do it multiple times a day. So let me find my little, here we go. I have a little outline of what it involves. So you sit in a relaxed position, either, sitting up in a chair or laying down or anything. Um, either stare straight ahead or close your eyes, whatever's more comfortable for you. So you want to imagine that your spine is a coat rack, like a freestanding coat rack, okay? It's straight and rigid, you envision that's your spine. And then all of your muscles and your body are like the coats draped over it. So you want to just drape your muscles over your spine, relax everything. So you start at the top of your head and you just picture or imagine like a warm, relaxing sensation like oozing over your body. Okay. So you kind of do a scan. You start at the top of your head and then you go to your face. You're scanning for any tension in your muscles, whether that's your jaw, your forehead, your neck, your shoulders, going all the way down, just relaxing all of your muscles. And it's kind of like when you're at the beach or in the sun in summer and you feel like the warmth on your skin. It's almost like that feeling. You're imagining it flowing through your body. So you, like I said, you start at the top of your head and then you just go all the way down to you get to your toes, okay? Just relaxing all of your muscles, checking for any tension. And once you get all the way down, I want you to just quietly like notice your breathing. So you don't have to change your breathing or anything. Just notice it, allow yourself to maybe breathe a little bit slower or a little deeper if you can. And then every time you breathe out, you're breathing out more tension. You're just getting that tension out of your body. So, like I said, this is something that I suggest people do it like once a day, just to start out. And it helps lower your overall relaxation. So I think this is more so something that people work with, like a psychologist might do it. It's more of like a mindfulness yoga sort of thing, but it helps with attention because you're calling attention to different parts of your body and you're just relaxing overall. So overall relaxation will help you pay attention to things better and overall help your memory. So this is a good technique to do, get into the habit of doing the quick relaxation. And then also the Pomodoro technique. I don't know if anybody's heard of that before, but I think Pomodoros means tomato in Italian. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but it's a technique to help like focus on a task. So let's say you're completing something, you're doing a task or something like that. You're paying bills or you're doing your taxes or whatever. You're doing a class, you're reading, anything. You set a timer for 25 minutes. And if 25 minutes is too much for you, you could bump it down to like 20 or 15. There's no hard and fast rules. So you work until the timer rings, and then you set another timer for like 5 minutes to take a break. And you repeat that process. After you do it 4 times, you take a longer break, like 15 to 30 minutes. So it's something to help your brain remember to take a break, and it helps you focus. So that's something that you could do. It's very effective, like for people in school or students or anything like that. Help you focus on what you need to accomplish. So I know that this is a lot of information and it's hard to know where to start, but I think it's very important to keep track of what goes wrong, your cognitive issues, anything that you might be experiencing. So I have an example of this on the next slide. So this is just an example of something that I do with some of my patients that are having trouble with memory or attention. Okay, so it's like a record to help you keep track. So for example, okay, this example one on the first line, it happened on 10/1, forgot my ATM pin. Okay, so that's when it was, what happened. You could even say, I would say you could add like it was on October 1st and it was at noon or in the morning or in the afternoon, like a time period. And then how much did the problem or how much did the memory or attention problem bother you? 1, not at all. 10, a lot, like the most, and then 5 somewhere in between. So how much did it bother you? What was happening around you? So what were you doing? What were the surroundings like? Okay, I was in the bank, or I was at the bank, and there was a line of people talking behind me. There were people talking to the other bank tellers. There were phones ringing, people coming in and out. So it's probably a busy environment. And then how did you feel at the time? So I felt rushed because there were people behind me, kind of like huffing that I was taking a while. It was making me feel anxious. Also, I was hungry. You'd be surprised how hard it is to pay attention to something when you're hungry or thirsty or tired. So I also think it's important to keep track of like how your body felt at the time. Was I super fatigued? Was I feeling sick, tired, hungry, anything like that? So I suggest this. I think it's important because it's much easier to keep track of patterns when it's all written down like this. So it's kind of like if you keep them all in your head, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot my PIN that one time, but I don't really remember what was going on or when it was or what was happening or why I forgot my PIN. But if you have it all on paper, you'd be surprised how much easier it is to keep track of patterns. So then you can problem solve and see what can you control, what's in your control to change that environment and change the situation to keep that from happening. So maybe that is simply writing your pin in your phone so that if you're in that situation and there's a long line behind you, you have something to fall back on. You know that it's written on your phone or written in your purse somewhere. What kind of distractions can you eliminate from that situation that are in your control? So I think those are some good ways to get started to see, because to before using any kind of strategy, you need to know what's really going on. So if you're having trouble pinpointing exactly what you're having trouble with, I think this is a good technique to write it down, keep track of everything. Another thing you could do are some attention restoring activities. So again, like the quick relaxation, this is like a psychological technique, I think more so. Anything that requires sustained attention, okay? Anything that you enjoy, you have to be a hobby, anything that you like to do already. So cooking, gardening, sewing, I don't know, cutting the grass, reading, anything really. Anything that requires focus, sustained attention. And just doing that like we talked about with the Pomodoro technique. So doing those for a short amount of time, and then I'm going to take a break after 10 minutes of doing that. And then I'm going to take a break for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm going to go back to doing it. So it's kind of like training your brain to focus on things that requires sustained attention. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oops. All right, so here's my information and Veronica's information. I am in the South Side, and then Veronica's in the South Hills, but there's lots of depending on where you live, there's more speech therapists in the Pittsburgh area. So if you're interested in like a more personalized treatment strategies and working through it, then you can kind of call this number, or you can contact me or Veronica and we'll steer you to the right clinic. But here's our information. And then if you need this information, I'm sure you could reach out to Jen and she'll give it to you. Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I know that was a lot of information.